Council to order for the regular meeting, January 27th, 2025, 6 p.m. At the time and places advertised. Our second order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand and join us in reciting our pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next order of business is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor in consideration of others wishing to speak. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I don't see anyone from the public here tonight, so we will move on to presentations. Number 4A, International Holocaust Remembrance Day Proclamation, proclaiming January 27th, that's today, 2025, as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Proclamation, City of Lewiston, Idaho, whereas January 27 marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day, designated by the United Nations General Assembly to commemorate the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration and extermination camp, and whereas January 27, 2025 marks 80 years since the liberation, and whereas today and every day we remember and honor the memory of the 6 million Jews who were systematically murdered by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, along with millions of other innocent victims, including people with disabilities, political dissidents, and others targeted for persecution. And whereas anti-Semitism has been defined by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance as a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews, rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. And whereas International Holocaust Remembrance Day serves as a solemn reminder of the dangers of hatred, bigotry, and anti-Semitism, and underscores the importance of education, vigilance, and action to prevent such atrocities from occurring again. And whereas the City of Lewiston reaffirms its commitment to promoting tolerance, understanding, and human dignity while standing against all forms of hatred and discrimination. And where it is our duty to ensure that lessons of the Holocaust remain a cornerstone of our collective memory and honor the resilience of those who survived and rebuilt their lives. Now, therefore, I, Dan Johnson, Mayor of the City of Lewiston, proclaim January 27, 2025 as International Holocaust Remembrance Day in the City of Lewiston, Idaho, and call upon all residents to join in solemn remembrance of the victims, educate themselves about the Holocaust, and commit to building a more tolerant and compassionate society. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal of the City of Lewiston, Idaho, to be affixed hereto, this 27th day of January 2025, Daniel T. Johnson, Mayor, Lewiston, Idaho. Thank you, everyone. Next up is presentations, November financial report for the month ended November 30th, 2024, in accordance with Idaho Code 50-208. Our Director of Finance Director, Amy Gordon is here. Amy, do you have a report for us today or no oral report?
I do have an oral report.
Thank you. Please.
So included in your packet, you have 2 financial reports, the one for November and then also the one for December, which is a quarter end report. And it's December's financial report that I have an oral presentation for this evening, which is the end of the city's first quarter of fiscal year 2025. Our fiscal year runs October 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2025. One of the first areas I'd like to highlight this evening is the general fund revenues. Specifically, I just want to point out the 2 line items that I have highlighted there on the screen. The other line item, I'd just like to remind council that when we build a balanced budget, if we are spending more than the amount of revenues we plan to collect, meaning that we're budgeting to use our savings account, use our reserves, that's where we put that use of reserves budget in that other line category. So as you look at these reports throughout the year, if the percentage of revenue to budget is trending really low, sometimes close to 0%, that's why, because we don't actually receive revenue when we're using reserves. It's just a budgetary entry to create that balanced budget. Property taxes, although our property taxes we receive primarily at 2 times each year, January and July. So you're going to see those numbers jump really high on your January report to approximately 50%, and then it will get close to 100% at the end of the summer. So other than that, you'll see a little bit of collections each month, but we mainly get most of that in those 2 months. Then just taking a look at the general fund summary, I highlighted the insurance trust because as I went through the general fund and was looking at year-to-date spending to budget, this was the only activity where we were in excess of 25%. The insurance trust activity of the general fund is where our commercial liability and commercial packages are paid from. So we pay that premium all up front when the policy renews in October. So that's always going to be close to 100% right off the beginning of the year. We have a little bit of additional budget in that category for tort claims and some other damages that might happen to city property that's not covered by insurance. And then taking a look at that second line item, down below I just highlighted year-to-date revenues that we've collected of the 2.3 million compared to year-to-date spending for the general fund of 7 million. And that's just a kind of a good picture of why that 90 days cash reserves is so important to have on hand. Because we don't get those property taxes till January, and because a lot of our state revenues don't come in until January as well, we really rely on those reserves to get us through to January. Here's a little peek at our workers' compensation fund. I put this in tonight's presentation because this is a good news. As you guys know, the 3 prior years, we've had some really high cost claims, and our expenses on those claims have exceeded the amount of revenues coming into the fund. So we've been depleting reserves the last few years. Council, through the adoption of the fiscal year 25 budget, we mitigated that by restructuring our funding model, where we were able to increase our ongoing premiums as well as doing some one-time funding to replenish those reserves. So our goal when we wrote the budget for 25 is the $800,000 that we have there in revenue, although we built a balanced budget that put that over into expenditures should we need it. The goal was we wouldn't need it and we'd be able to replenish those reserves. If we look at year-to-date claims at the end of December, we're at 72,000, which is a really good quarter. It's probably one of the lowest quarters we've seen in the last 5 years. So our claims are trending down. More specifically, our costly claims are trending down. Water fund, I put this in just because this sampling from the financial report is just a really good example of things to look for when you're reading through your financial report. If we look to the right of this page where the expenses are, you'll see those operating expense categories are just right there in that sweet spot of 20 to 25%, which is right on track to where we are year to date. The capital expenditures are really low, less than 10%, and that's really typical this time of year throughout the financial report. You'll see capital expenditures very low, if any, because we're just not in our construction season. And so come springtime, throughout the summer, those numbers will really ramp up to where the budget's set at. If you look over to the left side of the report where the revenues are, you'll see that water has 6.7 million programmed as grant revenue. That is the Idaho ARPA dollars that we were able to get allocated to the city of Lewiston for the intake project, which actually I believe Dustin's showing that or presenting that to you for approval tonight. And so if you look, you have the $6.7 million of grant revenue. You look over to your capital expenditures that we haven't started spending yet. So that grant, as we spend the money, will get reimbursed from those grant funds. So a lot of that 11 million of water's capital budget is because of that $6.7 million grant. And then again, you have another line item there. You'll see that always be low to budget. But that's just kind of a a good picture of how these funds should look at this time of the year. They don't always look like that, but this is a good example. The internal service funds, I wanted to highlight those tonight. Looking at fleet, the one on the top half of your slide, you'll see their other line item has a negative revenue budget. And that's because in this particular scenario, we plan to spend less than what that fund gets in revenues this year, because this is a year where we're replenishing those reserves. We're building those reserves up. If you look over to the right side where we have our capital expenditures, they have about 700,000 programmed to spend this year. For fleet, that's a low year, or average spending in fleets maybe about $1 million. And so we're kind of in an era where we're replenishing reserves, because if you remember, we bought that ladder truck last year and now we're building those reserves back up. The 380,000 that was spent year to date, that's actually for the street sweeper that was appropriated in the 2024 budget. Council approved the contract for it in 2024. We didn't take possession of it until 2025. We didn't actually write the check till 2025. It'll be on your amendment list. Information systems, which is actually information systems and security. This fund is a little bit unique, and its capital budget isn't project-based. So they're responsible for replacing all of our technology equipment. So they'll buy a lot of that up front in the year so that they have it to deploy throughout the year. Another thing that's really unique about information systems is they have a very high service and charges budget, where you'll see it's about 500,000 for the year. And that's primarily related to software contracts. The city utilizes a lot of software in our various operations throughout the city. Most of that software all runs through this fund. And a lot of those software contracts we pay up front at the beginning of the year. And then lastly tonight, I'm just giving you a peek at your fiduciary funds. The city has 2 fiduciary funds, the police retirement fund, cemetery perpetual care. These are all professionally managed funds. They're managed by U.S. Bank Trust, and we have an investment policy that guides how those funds are invested and managed. They're invested for a long-term horizon. The police retirement, it's at a negative revenue for the year. It had experienced some losses in December. Those aren't anything that we get worried about, because this fund is designed to be able to withstand those losses as the market moves up and down. We did just get our actuary report back last week, which I will send out to council later this week to review. We do an actuary study on our police retirement every 2 years, and it is still fully funded. So the targeted investment pool for this fund is, I don't remember the exact number, but in the $11 million range. We're currently sitting at $13 million in assets, so we're fully funded. We're actually slightly overfunded, which is good news for council, and it means that we should not have to look at putting any additional funds into this trust for the next couple of years. The perpetual care fund, it stood up to the market losses in December, much better than the police retirement, but the amount of money that you have in your perpetual care funds of $1 million versus the 11 some million you have in police retirement, so it's going to be a little bit more volatile to the market. And that's all I have tonight, unless there's questions for me.
Thank you, Director. Councilors, questions? Oh, I think we're good to go there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy. Okay, councilors, next we will move to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these issues unless the councilor so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered on the active agenda under items moved from the consent agenda. Councilors?
Mayor,
Councilor Schroeder?
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, seconded by Councilor Forsman to approve the consent agenda. Clerk Brocky?
Council President Kleber,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Spiegelmeier.
Aye. Carries. Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Clerk Brocky. Council, next we'll move to the active agenda. Item A, advisory board and commission appointments. These are action items. We'll start out with item 1, Historic Preservation Commission. Let me just begin by saying that I met with all 3 of these candidates, and I enjoyed visiting with each of them. I learned something from them, and it quite honestly gives me a lot of energy and excitement about the citizens, the quality of the citizens, the services that they bring to these commissions. So I was very pleased with that and enjoyed my time with them. Number 1, Preservation Commission, considering the reappointment of Lorinda Riggs to an additional 3-year term. This is an action item, and I move to approve the reappointment of Lorinda Riggs to a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission.
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to approve the reappointment of Lorinda Riggs to a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Next up, number 2, Cemetery and Urban Forestry Commission. Considering the appointment of Elizabeth Getzinger to a 3-year term, this is an action item. I move to approve the appointment of Elizabeth Getzinger to a 3-year term on the Cemetery and Urban Forestry Commission.
Second.
It's been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilor Forsman to approve the appointment of Elizabeth Getzinger to a 3-year term on the Cemetery and Urban Forestry Commission. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Next up, number 3, Parks and Recreation Commission. Considering the appointment of Jill Carlson-Bulmer to a 3-year term, I move to approve the appointment of Jill Carlson-Bulmer to a 3-year term on the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Second.
Been moved by the mayor, seconded by Council President Kleberg to approve the appointment of Jill Carlson-Bulmer to a 3-year term on the Parks and Recreation Commission. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And congratulations to our appointees. We thank them for their service. Item B, under Roman numeral 6, active agenda, council liaison appointments, appointing councilors to serve as the city's representative to the Association of Idaho Cities and Valley Vision. This is an action item. And councilors, I heard back from 3 of you wanting to serve on these committees or these organizations, and the way that I decided to do this was if you have not served on one of these before, that you would get preference to serve, and then it would be by seniority. So I had Clerk Brocky pull it up. Councilor Spickelmeyer and Forsman both asked to serve on Valley Vision, and neither one of them had served on that. Councilor Forsman has seniority, and so I will nominate Councilor Forsman as city representative
Second.
to Valley Vision.
Second.
Been moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to appoint Councilor Forsman as the city's representative to Valley Vision. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Councilors, again, for the Association of Idaho Cities, I had one councilor that was interested. That was Councilor Klein. He has not previously served on that, so I move to appoint Councilor Klein as a city representative to the Association of Idaho Cities.
Second.
Second by Councilor Forsman.
Counselor Schroeder.
It's been moved by Mayor Johnson, second by Councilor Forsman to appoint Councilor Klein as a city representative to the Association of Idaho City. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. These appointments will go until the upcoming election in November, and then we will reappoint everyone to different commissions or committees should they desire. Next up, item C, second amendment to the collective bargaining agreement, FOP Lewis Clark Lodge number 10. Considering approving the second amendment to the collective bargaining agreement between the city of Lewiston and the Fraternal Order of Police Lewiston Clark Lodge number 10, and authorizing the mayor to execute the amendment. This is an action item. Councilors, if you'd like to ask our Human Resources Director, Nikki Providence, a question about this, otherwise I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor.
Councilor Forsman?
I thought you were leaning forward for questions, sorry. Motion to approve the second amendment to the collective bargaining agreement between the city of Lewiston and Fraternal Order of Police Lewis Clark Lodge number 10.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Forsman, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to approve the second amendment to the collective bargaining agreement between the city of Lewiston and the Fraternal Order of Police Lewis Clark Lodge number 10. This is a roll call. Clerk Brocky?
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman.
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder.
Aye.
Counselor Klein.
Aye.
Counselor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Item D, decision on reconsideration of CNC 24-4. Considering approval of the decision on reconsideration of CNC 24-4. This is an action item, and council, we have our city planner, Mr. Joel Plaskon, with us here tonight. If you have questions, otherwise I would entertain a motion. Councilor Schroeder.
I move to approve the decision on reconsideration of ZNC 24-4.
Second.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, seconded by Councilor Klein to approve the decision on reconsideration of ZNC 24-4. And Councilor Schroeder and Councilor Klein, I'm assuming that we're approving the decision on reconsideration as written. Is that correct? Just to make sure we have options.
I believe as written, yes.
Clerk Brocky?
Council President Kleberg.
Aye.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
Counselor Forsman.
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder.
Aye.
Counselor Klein. Aye. Counselor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Council, thank you, Clerk Rocky. Next up, item E, Resolution 2025-1, considering accepting a temporary emergency services access easement from Vinell Steel and Diana J. Steel to the city of Lewiston. This is an action item, and we have our Public Works Director, Dustin Johnson, with us. Welcome, Director.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Dustin Johnson. I'm just here to give you a little background of what this actually is. So if you recall, I believe it was in August, we had a public hearing for a vacation, and it's a vacation for Bryden. And so if you remember, there's a section of Bryden, so we're not talking about as you get up by the airport, we're talking way out at the extreme end of Bryden where it ends at a cliff going into Lindsay Creek. The neighbors to the north have what's called double fronting. So when Canyon Crest was developed, there's a road right in front of their house, and then this right away for Bryden right behind their house. Well, Bryden was never actually constructed, and they wanted to make it so it would never be constructed. So they petitioned for a vacation, took it before the council for their consideration, and council approved it with the contingency that we resolve some issues that would be created by this vacation. And so one of those is 18th Street goes north and keeps going and goes all the way through Canyon Crest and is one of the main streets in that neighborhood. 19th Street is undeveloped. It is city right-of-way. So if you vacate Bryden between 18th and 19th, the right-of-way for 19th becomes non-conforming. And we don't, that's our goal, is to not create non-conforming streets in the city of Lewiston. And so what this does is dedicating this temporary emergency services access easement on a private property right on the corner. If you see in your exhibit, it was less than, let's see how big it was. It was a tiny little 0.028 acres right on the corner of undeveloped property. And the thought is generally that 19th, as it's currently sitting out there, dedicated right away, as soon as it is developed, that property they would need to put in, frontage improvements and dedicate future right of way, maybe vacate part of 19th or whatever they wanted to do. They would come up with a more permanent solution. But at this, 19th remains conforming. So for whatever reason, if we needed to get fire trucks back there, we could get them turned around on a temporary basis until the neighborhood develops, or it doesn't ever develop and it stays like this. But this is just a temporary measure. So tonight is only the consideration for this temporary easement. I think at our next formal meeting, not the next, the next meeting, I will have the vacation for you to formalize at that for your consideration. Here for questions on just the easement.
Thank you, Director. Councilors, questions for the Director? Councilor Spiegelmeier.
So, Director, maybe it's in there and I didn't see it. Is there a deadline on this temporary? Or is it
No,
open
it's at any use, any development of that property would trigger this. This would go, this would terminate, and then this would terminate upon any other, whatever you want to call it, equivalent of what was there. So if they came and they dedicated a true public cul-de-sac out there, this would go away.
Questions, council?
Mayor,
Counselor Schroeder,
I move to approve Resolution 2025-1.
Second.
it's been moved by Counselor Schroeder, seconded by Council President Kleberg to approve Resolution 2025-1. Clerk Brockie?
Sorry. Council President Kleberg.
Aye.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
Counselor Forsman.
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder.
Aye.
Counselor Klein.
Aye.
Counselor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Passes. Thank you, Director of Council and Clerk Rocky. Appreciate that. Next up is item F, IFB-25-003, Site C Intake Reconstruction Phase 1. Considering approving IFB-25-003, Site C Intake Construction Phase 1 construction contract between Helm Construction Incorporated and the City of Lewiston in the amount of $6,700,000 and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract. This is an have our Public Works Director, Dustin Johnson, with us here. Welcome, Director.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. In front of you tonight, it's a bit of a bittersweet night, so give you a little history of this project, what we have incurred over the last 5-6 years, and what we're facing tonight. So if you go back, I think it was 2017, 2018, the city put forth the state revolving fund bond that went in front of the voters, overwhelmingly approved wastewater and water separately. And part of that water was a new water treatment plant, a new well, a new reservoir, some pipes, and an intake, an upgraded intake on the Clearwater River. And so the intake kind of kept getting pushed back because of the prioritization of the water treatment plant and some of the other stuff that was a little bit more straightforward. What ended up happening on the intake while we were doing, so this was, like any of these projects, you start with a preliminary design. The design thought you could reuse what was out there, and it turns out that what was constructed was not going to be able to be utilized what's in the river right now. So to go back even further, when the dams went in, obviously the levees encapsulated the Clearwater and Snake River, and so I'm trying to move my cursor around. So if you see my cursor, the water treatment plant is right here down in the left-hand, right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner. And at that, the old, for the first 100 years of its existence, the water treatment plant drew the water directly out of the river. Well, when they put the levee system in, they redesigned the intake. And so the intake was going to be upstream from the paper mill. And so they drilled a temporary hole to get it going, and then they put a permanent one that was upstream from the paper mill. And so now the city would be routed clean drinking water out of the Clearwater on the north side of the river and then crossing down at the water treatment plant. Well, during this process, and this was going all the way back into the 70s when the dams went in, the temporary intake always worked, as construction was happening. But for whatever reason, they kept running into issues at the permanent intake. And so over the course of the 70s and the 80s and even into the 90s, the city continued to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to try and get that system going. And I believe they had 3 separate startups, all of which did not succeed. So every time that there was a failure, they would go back and use the temporary intake. So the temporary intake has now been going for 50 years. And so, as I said earlier, that they thought, since they tried so many times without success to get the reconstruct, and I don't know the details, I can't tell you what the failures were, but the concrete within the site, the permanent site, will not work. And so the site is good, the well house, everything there that we can reutilize, and that's where the pipes are all go. It's a good location, it's permitted, so I don't think it's a good idea to move it, especially at this point when we've sunk so much money into design. That is the location of the preferred location. We just have to put way more money into it. So the two things that are up against the temporary intake is, one, you can see it's not all the way down gradient from the downstream from the paper mill, but you can also see some of these islands that are forming. So that intake is further down on that curve of the Clearwater, and so it silts shut about every 5 years. It builds up, and over the spring runoff, we can go out there and you can see that it's still shut. So obvious, for multiple reasons, we would like to go back to the permanent site. So now fast forward back into the SRF projects, we're moving really quick. We're drilling wells, we're building reservoirs, we're building water treatment plants, and then COVID happens. And that triggers an explosion of building costs, material costs, and delays in just getting the materials. And so at that point, we reached out to the the estimate that we used was bad because we thought we could reuse the facility and it was no longer usable. So that inflated the costs. And then two, the material costs that we thought we could buy for, $3 a ton are now $6 or $7 or $8, $9 a ton. So we reached out to the DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality for the state of Idaho, and they awarded us, we were one of, I think, 3 cities in the state that had active projects. So they awarded us some ARPA dollars. And so when you see these, we talk about ARPA dollars a lot for the Main Street water. These are actually ARPA allocations from the state. So it's a little different. It doesn't matter from the perspective of its federal dollars, just these are coming from the state of Idaho, not our direct allocation. So with all those things said, we have a proposal in front of you tonight based off of, there's some 595 grant money that's from the Army Corps of Engineers and the ARPA dollars to fund this. What's unfortunate is we're out of money. We have exhausted the SRF funds, we've exhausted our ratepayer money, and we've exhausted the ARPA dollars that are available to us. To give credit to the mayor, he has been wearing out the phone lines and the handshakes between Washington, D.C. and Boise and Lewiston to try and find the funding. As of today, we do not have funding. So what is in front of you tonight is basically, we have the permits in place, we have the designs in place, is to build all the in-water work this season, this upcoming construction season. It's not my preferred option because you will not get an operational intake, but it is a desirable outcome because we will get the permits, we'll get everything out of the river. Everything from here is stuff that anybody can bid, and a lot of it is just the pumps, pump houses, the electrical components, and all of that stuff. So this takes care of the hard work, but it does not finish the project. So I believe we've got 4 bids, 4 responsive bids. The low bid was a firm called Helm Construction out of Spokane at $6.7 million. The funding is broken into, as I said, the 595 grant money and the remaining ARPA dollars that were allocated from the state of Idaho. With that, I stand for questions.
Director, if I could just add to your story before council asks questions, I think it's important. When I first got involved in this project, this was the fall after our water reservoir failed. And I got a call from the water department saying that we're going to have to basically turn the water plant off, because of all the sediment that was being sucked up through that temporary intake into the new plant. Liquid sand coming out of there, and that's just going to filters. I don't know what it'll do for the motors if it can get through those, but it wasn't good. And so we've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers since that time, trying to get them to take ownership of this. Just a real brief background, the Corps of Engineers decommissioned the existing intake in 1973 and then put in a temporary, which is, we're still in use today. And then they failed in 1978, the permanent intake failed, and then again in 1997. Didn't work. Corrective action did not work. So the permanent intake that, quite honestly, the city of Lewiston had a claim against federal government when they put the Lower Snake River dams in. You're going to flood us out? So they said, you're right. So we're going to replace that. And since that time, that permanent intake has operated for a total of 1.5 years. 1978, when they first constructed that. So I maintain that the Corps of Engineers still needs to finish this project. And so I've been to the Walla Walla 3 different times. Director Grohl accompanied me one time, Joe Kaufman another time. I've met with congressional staff here in Boise. We've applied for more 595 funding, which the Corps says is not available. We submitted a help us work on that. They basically would do the labor. Technical for that effort. They couldn't take that on. They probably build more roads and bridges than water intakes. But it's very expensive. Some of the reasons why, Director, if I can just read from an email that one of your staff sent to me a while ago, about a year ago, on why this failed. The low value, the compressive strength of concrete mixed design of 3,000 PSI, so apparently that doesn't work today. The low yield strength of steel that was common back in 1977 of grade 40. Low soil loading conditions used for the wet well design, improper detailing of how horizontal and vertical rebars overlap on the lower end of the structure, and then overall less stringent building code and safety factor requirements as compared to today's current international building code and other structural codes. So we're going to build a better intake, and the Director mentioned about the fish screens, and those are, the bids on those come in anywhere from $336,000 up to $750,000. Those are not cheap. And we're doing that because, in part we're required to with the National Marine Fisheries Service and others to protect the fish. So this is getting very expensive. And it's still my hope that we can get some additional funding to help complete this project at some point. Because again, I feel like it's essential infrastructure for the city. We're not asking them to, build us a new building or something like that. This is essential infrastructure that has been ignored for a long time. Now, another reason why I tell you this, and I think it's important, is it was in the news report in the newspaper Sunday. I've not read the article yet, but I know that it's in there. But this here is Lower Snake River Water Supply Replacement Study. It's a draft report, and you can get it online. It's about 600 pages. And they talked about it briefly in the Tribune on Sunday. And this is if they pull the dams out. And for this area, one of the options is to build a dam up there on Hatway Creek by the casino and then pipe water from there to our water plant. And it's very expensive. I don't know if that would work or not, but they have not talked to the city at all. I don't even know if they know we have a water intake. The way the reports written is it's pretty bad. But I have a concern that if the federal government is going to talk about pulling the dams and reconstructing things, it's like, if they can't fix a water intake for us 50 years later, what gives me any confidence that they were able to provide us water if they pull the dams, so it's a little bit disconcerting. And, this is a push me, pull me thing with the congressional staff offices and others, but we're going to work tirelessly. I know that I will, to see if we can't secure funding. While I was in Boise last week for the Association of Idaho Cities, I did meet with Senator Crapo's staff, his chief of staff, at their request to talk about this project. And then I met with Mike Edmondson, who's in the Office of Species Conservation in the governor's office. They're interested in this, and they said they have some money and possibly some money to help us with the fish screen. So I agree with the director. It's not ideal to do half a project, but the nice part is if we can get the water work done and get out of the water, then we don't have to deal with pride, maybe, I don't know, but it'll certainly make it easier for the rest of the funding, which is in the neighborhood of $10 million to finish it. But this is important for the future of water supply. So that we have that coming in. We don't have to go through 5 years because everything on the river and other problems that it's causing us. So we just need to get working with the federal agencies and the congressional folks to see if they can't assist us with this. Very worthwhile project, so I appreciate the effort. Questions for the director? Thank you for listening to me. Councilor Forsman.
You answered my question.
Oh,
I have a comment, Mayor.
Councilor Klein.
I thought the bids were crazy, how different they were, like double what this one came
That did catch me
in
by
at.
surprise.
With it being low compared to everybody else's bids, do you think we're gonna have to make some amendments to it later on?
So the mayor talked about the fish screen, and we usually keep, especially in a project like this, we keep money back. We build a contingency just in case, because we know something like this, and there's a lot of unknowns, especially going in water. There's a risk right now, because we have, by the bids and by what we have in the bank account, we have enough to build everything with the fish screens. But knocking on wood, there is some concern there. But you know, there's the risk you can take, because one of the recommendations was take the fish screens out, but then you have to go back in the water, and you don't want to do that. So we may have to, if something comes up, we'll come back to the council and update you and say we have money in the ratepayer money, but we would have to defer a project next year to make sure that we get all the in-water work done. So yeah, it's an art more than a science, but yeah, there is some concern about that. And yes, the bids were two grouped really close at the low end, and then two that were not.
Counselor Schroeder?
Thank you. Just to confirm, I guess maybe I've read through this, but just to confirm, this is to upgrade or replace the working one, the temporary one, correct?
This
No.
is to replace the
Okay,
what we call the permanent one that is
Okay.
not operational, the one that's further upstream.
so this will make it somewhat operational?
No,
Not at all? We'll still be using,
we'll still be using the temporary one.
okay, I
But
just
this will
wanted
get
to
us-
make that clear in my mind. I thought that's what we were saying. Okay, thank you. Mayor, if you're ready for a motion, I will make a motion.
Motion's in order, thank you.
I move to award IFB-25-003, Site C intake reconstruction phase 1 construction contract to Hallam Construction Incorporated in the amount of $6,700,000 and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Second. By Counselor Schroeder, second by Council President Kleberg, to award IFB-25-003 Site C Intake Reconstruction Phase 1 construction contract to Helm Construction Incorporated in the amount of $6,700,000 and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleber,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
Aye.
Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Klein,
Aye.
Councilor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Director. Clerk Rocky. Next up, item G, IFB-25-004 17th Street Sidewalk Infill, 13th Avenue to 15th Avenue. Concerning awarding IFB-25-004 17th Street Sidewalk Infill, 13th Avenue to 15th Avenue, TR 064, and construction contract to La Riviera Incorporated in the amount of $325,975.80. And authorizing the mayor to sign the contract. This is an action item. Director Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor. Councilor Spiegelmeier, I'm going to try not to screw up this. This is another one of those grants with the local match. And this was already filed before our last, already filed before our last conversation about, in the future, I'm going to try and have like a matrix to show the dollars for design, construction, but more or less, this is another grant through the state. This one is a TAP, so Transportation Alternative Program. It actually, this kind of demonstrates a little bit where we're bound to the timelines and schedules of all of these projects. And so, yes, this is a great grant, a great opportunity. So the total percent is 92.66% is paid through this grant, where the city's portion is only 7.34%. But you'll see in the memo that this was authorized in December of 2022. So we are, 2 years and a couple months since this project was greenlit, but the process to get all the approvals, environmental, get the design, get the money funneled through here, get everything put together. This is a great project. So as you go up the hill on 17th and you go past Jennifer, I believe it's right there at 13th where Jennifer ends, the sidewalk ends. And so there's 2 full blocks on the west side of 17th that have no sidewalk. There's a little bit of, we have plenty of right of way. There'll be some retaining walls to, because the slope kind of is steep there, right there. But it's a great project for getting sidewalks, and it connects directly to the school. So as the mayor outlined, it is a 92.66% federal portion and a 7.34% local portion. La Riviera's portion is, the local match for this will be $23,926.62. I stand for questions.
Counselor Forsman?
Can you explain the 536 and 496? I think I'm a little,
The total grant was 536, so that includes the design and now the construction, and then there'll be another contract for construction, inspection, and administration.
so where does the 496 come in?
That is the federal portion of that 536, so that's
Okay.
92.66%.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Schroeder?
I move to award IFB-25-004, 17th Street Sidewalk Infill, 13th Avenue to 15th Avenue Construction, contract to La Rivera Incorporated in the amount of $325,975.80. Thank you. And authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Second.
Been moved by Counselor Schroeder, second by Counselor Wright to award IFB-25-004, 17th Street Sidewalk and Field 13th Avenue to 15th Avenue construction contract to La Riviere Incorporated in the amount of $325,975.80 and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman,
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder,
Aye.
Counselor Klein,
Aye.
Counselor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Motion carries. Next up, item H, IFB-25-005, Community Center HVAC replacement. Considering awarding IFB-25-005, Community Center HVAC replacement to Mangum Construction LLC for the total amount of $212,000 and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. This is an action item. If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion on this. It's simply a replacement. Council. Counselor Spiegelmeier?
I had a question, and I guess maybe for Director Gordon. On this, in the budget impact, it states it's going to come out of the facilities property improvements fund. Is that the $5.3 million fund?
No, within the property improvement section of the
Director
general
Gordon,
fund.
please introduce yourself for the
Oh,
record,
I
please.
apologize. Amy Gordon, City Treasurer. Within that property improvements activity of the general fund, there's two components. One of it is the assigned building fund. There's currently 5.3 million in that fund. We haven't dedicated any new projects for that. And then we have a deferred maintenance budget, and its annual budget each year is 180. I thought it was only 130. It's not a
How much
great
was it?
amount.
130.
We're gonna say 130, give or take 20,000, maybe. But we do have a deferred maintenance budget. The last couple of years, council has appropriated an additional 250,000 to it to allow facilities to do some additional deferred maintenance and to potentially get caught up on the long list of deferred maintenance. I think as Shannon was planning on discussing with you tonight, a project like this really eats into their budget that they have. If it hadn't been for the additional funding that council's appropriated to that budget, they wouldn't even be able to do this project. So these are the type of projects that facilities could potentially look to using the assigned building fund with council's consent. But I'll let Shannon speak more to that.
It just kind of threw me off that when I was looking at your budget report, it called that unassigned building fund as the property improvements. And I saw this in here, so I was wondering if it was one and the same.
Yeah, they're combined in your financial report. So the total expenditure budget on that property improvement line item in the general fund is 5.68 million. On the left-hand side of that report where you have the 5.3 million of revenue, what that revenue is the money that is remaining in the assigned building fund, so your reserves. So the difference between those two, the 380,000, is the deferred maintenance budget. So 380,000 minus 250,000, the typical annual budget is only 130,000, but because council utilized 250,000 of the unassigned general fund reserves to give them additional budget, they have 380,000. Facilities does, for deferred maintenance.
Thank you.
So I'll just follow up on that. Director Shannon Grow, Community Development Director, Interim Parks Director. Part of what Amy was talking about was that generally there's 130,000 budgeted. As she stated, a project like this can't even be covered with our normal just operating, trying to fix and repair things across the city. In the last couple of years, the council has put an additional 250,000 in that. Again, this one project wipes out that additional 250,000. At the work session next week on February 3rd, I'll be coming back to the council to go over the assigned building fund, the 5.3 million, and what we have kind of on deck as far as projects that need to be looked at, whether they need to be designed first or whether we can go ahead and do some of these. This particular project, although can be budgeted through the operations budget, we will most likely ask if we can have this project as a part of that discussion.
I might ask a question, Director. I need 1 second. Unless councilors have another question. Because I didn't do the math on this earlier, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe you can help me figure this out. On the agenda item history sheet, the selected bid came in at 212,000, which is below the original estimate of 250,000. And on the memo that is included in our packet today, it says that the balance, I think, in that fund is 380. And
It's a total of 380,000. So that, this memo is actually from Valerie, who's the facilities manager. The total budget, what we were just talking about, is 380. That's 130 normally, plus a 250. And because it's 242,000, 212 for this contract, and engineering was done prior to this. So I think that's what you're getting at.
perfect. Just want to make sure. Thank you, Director. Council?
I have a comment.
Councilor Klein?
I just wanted to say thank you to Candy and Purchasing and Coordinator, and Shannon for being really responsive in this. I had some questions earlier that they responded to and gave me a little more breakdown on the cost of these things, because from my perspective, I do smaller scale stuff that doesn't cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace, and so it helped put things in perspective for me.
And I told Councilor Klein this already, but really appreciate if council, if you do have questions like that and it's not in the packet, feel free to reach out to staff, because oftentimes I won't have the full package with me or know all the details. So it's really helpful if you do have questions to just get a hold of us and ask us so we can be prepared for the meeting.
Councilor Schroeder?
Make a motion?
Motion's in order.
Move to award IFB-25-005 Community Center HVAC replacement to Mangan Construction, sorry, LLC in the amount of $212,000 and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Forsman to award IFB-25-005 Community Center HVAC replacement to Mangum Construction LLC in the amount of $212,000, authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Clerk Rocky.
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Klein,
Hi.
Councilor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. And thank you, Councilor Klein, for sharing those generous comments too about staff. I know they appreciate that very much, and I appreciate hearing it too. It's good to hear that. Thank you. Councilors, next up, item I, ordinances number 1, first reading. Item A, ordinance 4938, considering amending Lewiston City Code, section 35-81, sub 1, relating to the service of a parking violation notice. This is an action item. If you have questions, we have our Community Development Director, Shannon Grow, with us. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor.
Counselor Forsman?
I think I'm reading this right. It was the difficulty is sometimes that you can't locate the owner, or if the owner, as it's stated here, lives out of state, that it delayed, obviously it takes time, but did it also delay kind of the process?
Yeah, so this is a piece of the code that came to our attention because we were developing some door hangers for various parking violations that come through code enforcement. And the process that happens now is that most vehicles that can be towed, the code enforcement officer will attempt to find the owner. Oftentimes it is, the adjacent property. And so a notice is posted prior to giving a ticket. So code currently says that if it is ticketed, then we have to either hand deliver or mail something. And so that goes through LPD. So this is just getting rid of that extra step that has to be done and streamlines the process.
We don't find that there's any concern that the one getting the ticket isn't gonna get enough notice, or?
No, what happens is for the most part, we find them pretty easily. And they find their tickets pretty easily. And so it's a non-issue. But if it were to become an issue, then what would happen is the ticket would get processed through LPD, it goes to finance, finance finds them and bills them. And so then if there was and it's a very small chance that they would not see this ticket or notice, because there's several attempts being made through this process, then they would definitely know about it through if the ticket had not been paid, we would reach out through those means.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Counselor Klein?
So if, say the person parked their rig across the street and then they like went to Arizona for the winter and they got a ticket, they wouldn't be notified until they got a bill in the mail
Correct.
for their stuff being towed, because there wouldn't be.
It would be
If you couldn't get to
parking
them.
violation.
Yeah.
Correct. But our code enforcement is pretty diligent and pretty quick about these types of things. And so that would be an uncommon occurrence to happen.
Counselor Schroeder?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4938.
Been moved by Counselor Schroeder, second by Counselor Forsman, to approve the first reading of ordinance number 38. Is there further discussion? Amendments? If not, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Rocky?
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4938, an ordinance of the City of Lewiston amending Lewiston City Code Section 35-81-1 relating to the service of a parking violation notice and providing an effective date.
Next up, council, we have ordinance 4932, considering implementing the city council's decision in CNC 24-4, declaring that certain real property be removed from the community commercial C3 zone to the medium density residential R3 zone, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Lewiston. This is an action item. Councilors, if you have questions, we have our city planner, Mr. Joel Plaskon, with us here tonight. If not, I would entertain a motion. Council President Kleberg?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4932.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, second by Councilor Schroeder, to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4932. Is there further discussion or amendments? Okay, hearing none. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Rocky?
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4932, an ordinance of the City of Lewiston implementing the City Council's decision in ZNC 24-4, declaring that certain real property be removed from the community commercial C3 zone to the medium density residential R3 zone, amending the official zoning map of the City of Lewiston and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Councilors, next up we have number 2, second and third readings. A, ordinance 4936, considering amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-45 relating to lot size in the R3 zone, amending the purpose statement of Lewiston City Code Section 37-50 Sub A, amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-51 relating to uses permitted outright in an R4 zone, amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-52 relating to the conditional uses permitted in an R4 zone, amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-56 relating to the permitted building height in an R4 zone, amending Lewiston City Code Sections 37-57.2 Sub 23 and 37-93.2 Sub A, Sub 3 to establish regulation of multifamily residences under Section 37-124.1, and amending Lewiston City Code, Section 37-82, Sub 7, to permit multifamily residential uses not on the ground floor. This is an action item, and again, we have our city planner with us, Mr. Joel Plaskon. If not, councilors, I would entertain a motion. Councilor Speckelmeyer,
Motion to combine the second and third readings and waive the third reading in full of the ordinance number 4936.
been moved by Councilor Speckelmeyer, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to combine the second and third readings and waive the third reading in full of ordinance number 4936. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Speckelmeyer,
Motion to approve the second and third readings of ordinance number 4936.
Second.
been moved by Councilor Speckelmeyer, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to approve the second and third readings of ordinance number 4936. Is there discussion or amendments? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Clerk Brocky.
Approving the second and third readings of ordinance 4936. An ordinance of the City of Lewiston amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-45 relating to lot size in the R3 zone, amending the purpose statement of the Lewiston City Code Section 37-50A, amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-51 relating to uses permitted outright in an R4 zone, amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-52 relating to the conditional uses permitted in an R4 zone, amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-56 relating to the permitted building height in an R4 zone, amending Lewiston City Code Sections 37-57.223 and 37-93.2A3 to establish regulations of multifamily residences under Section 37-124.1, amending Lewiston City Code Section 37-82 to permit multifamily residential uses not on the ground floor and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Clerk Brocky. Councilors, we're still on the active agenda. Item I3, adoption and approval of ordinance summaries. Item A, ordinance 4936. This is an action item. Councilor Speckelmeyer,
Motion to adopt ordinance number 4936 and approve the related ordinance summary.
Second.
it's been moved by Councilor Speckelmeyer, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to adopt ordinance number 4936 and approve the related ordinance summary. Clerk Brocky.
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Next up is Roman numeral 8, unfinished and new business. Item A, city councilor comments. Comments shall not be related to an item currently before the city council or an item that may come before the city council in the foreseeable future. It shall be limited to comments, not discussion. Councilor Forsman.
Mayor, I wanted to talk about the Holocaust that we're honoring. I'm glad that we're bringing that to Lewiston because it's a very important part of our history, one we should learn from and never repeat. And it brought me back to when I was in college and we had to write a paper and they told us to go to the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles. And I got to hear a survivor and her story of watching her families be separated on trains and taken to different concentrated camps and how she was about to be executed, but was saved at the last minute. And she never got to see her family again. So she was the sole survivor of her family. It's really eye-opening to hear someone who has actually experienced it in real life. When we were in a room, we got to actually see her. And then also throughout the museum, you get to go in and they have you feel like you're in the concentration camps. They put you in different rooms. You go to a certain room if you're children or if you're mother, puts you in the gas chambers. You get to see children being thrown off of buildings because they wanted to lessen how many people had kids, or just a matter of, just, you get to really experience how horrible and horrific that was for those experiencing that. And so if you ever get a chance to go to Los Angeles, the Museum of Tolerance is really eye-opening. And it's not just the Holocaust, they have other immigrant type exhibits there and everything they went through. And so, yeah, it was really, really eye-opening, and was thankful that actually my professor had suggested I go see that. The other thing I wanted to bring up was I saw a friend on Facebook put out a GoFundMe for their little girl who choked on a carrot over the holidays. And I don't know if she's still on life support, but was on life support. And not a couple weeks later, I see one of the firemen, and I see on a regular basis, was a huge contributor for saving that little girl's life. And it's Chief Lucas here, sitting here. As far as I understood, he was on his day off, and it was a neighbor, and he came to the call to help them save their little girl's life. And thanks to him, hopefully they'll be able to continue to have a thriving little girl that'll grow up and be happy and loving. And I also want to thank all of those that were there that day, that went above and beyond to save that child's life. It is truly an honor, and I thank you always for always being there for our community and helping those in need. I wanted to appreciate that. I have no more things. Okay, I'm all done.
Further council comments? Okay. Well, thank you, Counselor. Very, very nice comments. I actually had the opportunity to go to the Museum of Tolerance about a month ago when I was in Los Angeles, and it's very moving. And I had a chance to meet several folks there. But yeah, I felt it was important to bring that proclamation today on this 80th anniversary, and just to always remember. So thank you for allowing me to share that. And yes, Chief Lucas, thank you for all that you do. It's a very touching story, and I know you do what you're trained to do, and we're all just very appreciative of that. So I was actually riding around that day with one of Chief Cusick's patrol officers when the call came in. So yeah, it was a neat day, the outcome of that. So thank you for all of that. And it wasn't even my turn to talk, so we'll go to number B, City Boards and Liaison Updates. Wow, how dare me. Councilors, any updates, or Councilor Spiegelmeier?
Mayor. I had an update for the Parks and Rec Commission. If you remember, we had a lot of discussion around the Burt Lips pool, and one of the issues was that they had a land and water conservation grant, kind of holding things up. And we found out that that grant can be transferred to the community park, so they're going to be working on that. And as far as the commission's recommendations on Burt Lips pool, they're still working on their master plan. So as soon as we get that resolved, they'll have a question or an answer come to the council for that, what their recommendation is for this. The other thing is the commission reviewed the new Jewett Park land lease, and they have a recommendation to the city council to renegotiate.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Klein?
So I have upcoming meetings. Tuesday, the comp plan committee is going over potential landscape code amendments. And then I also have airport meeting on Tuesday, where there will be talk of a new potential board member, Chad Engel, that they'll be interviewing at that time. And then Thursday, the audit committee is presenting their draft.
Very good. Council President Claiborne?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We all received kind of a postcard here from the Lewis Clark Valley MPO. And basically in the midst of planning for the next 20 years of transportation in the valley, which is a fairly long-term plan. And I would encourage people, if you get a chance, look up the city website. I'm sure you can get their, I've got a little scan card thing here, but that's from the MPO. Okay, but all it takes is getting on the computer, taking a look, and you're able to make comments on, some of these plans. We've had people come in and say, you're gonna do what with what road? Been talking about for 8 or 9 years. So, having a little input is always a big plus. So that's all I got.
Can I help out with that?
Yes.
It's under lewisclarkmpo.org, and there's a little scan, and you can check it out. Oops, higher, there you go. Thank you.
Mayor.
Counselor Forsman.
I was not able to attend the last Public Works meeting. I was hoping to attend Zoom, but I was on the road taking my son to Spokane for a dentist appointment, so I didn't have a best service. The Historic Preservation I did attend that and making movements as always, and they didn't have anything that they wanted me to share at the moment, but I do always ask at my counselor comments for that, except for their appointees that they were excited to have continue to be a part of the Historic Preservation. And the NSAB meeting got canceled, I believe it was last week, due to missing information on the website. So due to city code, they had to cancel it and reschedule. And that will be, they're having a special session because we wanted to make sure we're still taking action and getting things done in a timely manner. So that's February 12th, I think is the date they settled on, from 3 to 5.
Thank you, Counselor. Other commission liaison updates, city boards, anything? I'll add to this that I'm going to be working, I met with Elizabeth Getzinger, we appointed her tonight, but I'll be working with her and the Cemetery Commission on getting our master plan updated for the cemetery. So we're going to look at the business financial sections in particular. One of the things that we talked about the other day and I learned was I pulled some minutes from 2011, and the Cemetery Commission in 2011 recommended to the council to surplus that land along Southway Avenue. Using the proceeds and putting it into the perpetual care fund, half of it, and then putting it elsewhere. So it's not a new idea, but it's out there. So we'll talk about it. I know that there's some folks that today don't feel that way, but we're just going to explore all that and then bring that back to the council at some point. So I'm going to take that over from Director Grow, and we'll come up with something on that. On the mayor comments, just an FYI, this Thursday, there are going to be about 600 teachers and students in town for the Idaho Music Teachers Conference. And this Thursday. Then there'll be about 325 in attendance at a banquet on Thursday night. So I've been asked to go welcome them to town, and I'm very excited to do that. But I want to learn more about this. This sounds like a really neat event that they're having. Tomorrow, across the city, if you haven't heard, we are going to raise our flags back up to full staff. So we've had them at half staff for 30 days. For President Carter, we'll raise those up tomorrow. Council, we now move to item G, agenda topics. Hearing none, okay, we'll go to number 9, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We can adjourn. Thank you.